plus a members-only stream for extra content throughout the day. There will be one last hill or high water fight that'll happen in the 2 o'clock hour, 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. It's also for members, tytnetwork.com/join. And then Wednesday, we will break down the election, of course, not only the results on the regular show, but afterwards, another special post-game where we analyze what progressives should do given who the new president is, whoever that might be. Okay, now a little bit later in this program, yes, we have the FBI going, about those emails are bad. So I do have that for you a little bit. There was a so-called assassination attempt on Donald Trump. I'll give you the details on that. And then later in the program, I decided I'm doing a 2-hour special for you guys. Boom. Just me. Sorry. Hashtag not sorry. And so I'm going to hold 2 hours right now. And in the second hour, I'm going to give you some context on some stories that I think are amazing and worth your attention, including Standing Rock. The whole story of Sioux Nation and how they were robbed. So I've done a good amount of research. Jordan Chariton over at TYT Politics has helped greatly in that regard. And then also the Syrian Defense Forces, what are they and why are they so badass? And could women actually recapture Syria? Fighting women. So that's an amazing story. So that's all in today's show. So having said that, let's start the panic. All right, here we go. 1 day from the election. Now, I'm going to give you macro numbers here because we're now at a point where state-by-state breakdowns get a little dicier. They're a little bit all across the map, and we had the announcement from the FBI saying, oops, over the weekend, we looked through the 650,000 emails, and turns out there's nothing in them. There's probably not going to be polling that is done in enough time to tell you the effect of that news. So it's complicated. But I can give you a macro sense here as we head into the election. Number one, I'm going to give you HuffPost polling. Last I looked, they were at 98.4% chance for Hillary Clinton to win. Now, I find that preposterous. Absolutely ridiculous. So, let me explain. Everybody does an aggregate of the polls in a slightly different way. And over the weekend, Huffington Post and Nate Silver, big fight back and forth on who's right and how to do the polls. There's the skewing of the polls. There's the unskewing of the polls. I don't want to bore you with all the details, but the folks that just look at the polls and say, based on, our calculations and likely voters and our reading of what we consider reputable polls, they come up with different numbers. HuffPost has got it at 98.4. I think that's ridiculous. What does 538 Nate Silver's site have it at? Well, okay. Now here's where it's a little different. The 98% for Huffington Post is her chance of winning the election based on the Electoral College. That's of course how we do it here in America. Nate first is going to look at how much of a lead she has nationwide. Now this is just a popular vote. That's not how we decide elections in America, which is insane, by the way. But to give you a sense of whether she's up or not. Now, as he explains, this is very rough. Roughly, she has about a 2.5 point lead. That's my summary of Nate Silver's summary at 538. He has a slightly broader range between 2 to 3%, but I think that is exactly right. That is my reading of the polls. The skewed ones, the unskewed ones, and all the ones in between, right? Now, she can win the popular vote and still lose the Electoral College. When it comes to the Electoral College, Nate Silver's read of it is that Clinton's chances are about 65% and Trump's chances are 35%. Now, if you're a gambler, those numbers are concerning. If you got a 98% chance of winning a bet, even if you're cursed and you're the Cubs and, everything goes against you, you're probably still going to win that bet. Okay, if you've got a 35% chance of losing a bet, I got to tell you, you'll lose it a lot of times. Okay, now that's the most obvious, ridiculous thing to say. Of course, right at 65-35. But I say is it better because if you haven't done a lot of gambling and you haven't, a lot of folks look at it and go, yeah, I got it. One of them is going to win, the other one isn't going to win. So if somebody's got a 51% chance or a 65, that sounds high. They got a 65% chance of winning. That means they're going to win. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It means 35% of the time the other guy wins, and that happens. It happens a lot. It happens 35% of the time. So I know for some of you that's super simple. For some of you, you're still thinking, yeah, but one of them is going to win. The one with the higher chances is the one going to win. No! That's not how it always goes. So, by the way, the polls have a margin of error. So even her national lead is within a margin of error. Now, that's an aggregate of all the polls, so it is less likely to have error. But when you look at the polls state by state, well, they are more likely to have error. And everybody does the polls in a different way. Some are reliable, some are unreliable. And what Nate is doing is he's weighing the polls among other factors that he's considering. Having read his entire analysis, and I don't know if you remember, but during the primaries, I was very tough on Nate Silver. I thought that he way underplayed Donald Trump. Turns out I was a little right about that. And he, in fact, he apologized to his audience for doing so. I thought he, underestimated Bernie Sanders in open primary states like Michigan. Okay. Now, on the other hand, he got close primary states like New York exactly right. So now I agree with him completely. I don't agree with him in this case 65% of the time. I agree with him about 100% in his analysis. So that means hold on for dear life. She still has a good chance of winning, and if you're a bettor, by the way, you don't want to be on the side that's got 35%. You'd rather be on the side with 65%. So she's still likely to win, but it really, really could go the other way. So when you look at an electoral map and some folks, I call them the establishment, but really people that work in Washington and New York are in that bubble, whether they're politicians, Democratic Party, or reporters, they don't, the reason I say bubble in this case is because they really don't almost know anyone in the middle class or among the poor. They'll be super mad at me saying that you don't know that. Of course I do. Really? You go drinking with folks from the middle class all the time? And no, if you make $250,000, I got news for you in New York. You're not middle class. You're not. I know you think you're middle class because you know a bunch of dudes that make $10 million a year, but you're not middle class. Okay? So in those circles, they think, I don't know anybody who's for Trump. Of course, 98.4%. Now, they're not making up the polls at HuffPost, right? And it's an organization that I respect. But when you look at it with a certain lens, you sometimes think, oh, I'll do the math this way, not even knowing that unconscious bias. So when they do their math, you've got an electoral college that has Hillary Clinton winning in a landslide. My map does not show landslide. I've got it exactly where I had it 3 weeks ago, which is razor-thin margin. I have Hillary Clinton winning in a razor-thin margin, but it could go the other way in 35% of the instances. Oh, boy. Okay. Now, let me get a little bit more specific. It's the day before the election. We do have to do some serious numbers here. Okay. Now, when you look at the electoral map overall and try to figure out who's going to win, I'm going to show you my map and who I've got. And this is a map that I shared with you weeks ago, but I'm going to fill out the details here. I think that there are a couple of factors you need to take into account outside of the polling. So, depending on who you ask, Hillary Clinton has anywhere between 98% to 65% chance of winning. I'm using roughly here HuffPost at 98%, 538, and Nate Silver's site at 65%. But I've got a couple other factors that I want you to consider. First, let's look at some of the numbers on early voting. So let's go to Nevada first. Over 57,000 votes were cast in populous Clark County, a single-day record that propelled Democrats to a statewide ballot edge on par with results at the same point in 2012 when President Barack Obama won Nevada by nearly 7 points. So that's good news for the Democrats. They're doing much better in early voting, and a lot of people have taken this to mean that's it, she's going to win Nevada. I don't take it that way at all, because the recent set of polls from Nevada have him winning. Now, he might lose Nevada anyway because of this. Let me give you one more data from that state. Democrats also overtook Republicans in Nevada's second largest county surrounding Reno, which has historically been closely contested. So, as you're going to see later, this is what I call the organization advantage for Hillary Clinton. So even though he might be winning in the polling, he's a schmuck and doesn't know how to get out the vote. In fact, when this whole thing started, first contest and caucus in Iowa, the morning after, Donald Trump literally said, I didn't know what get out the vote was. I don't know what that is. You're running for president. You don't know what it means to get out the vote. And he really hasn't learned much since then. So, yes, Hillary Clinton's team is working super hard to register people, get them to vote, etc. The Trump team basically going, and that'll cost you a couple of points. So now let's look a little broader at other states now. Returns in Nevada and several other states with early voting, including Florida, Colorado, Georgia, and Arizona, have shown large turnout increases among Latino voters. In Florida, as of Friday, Latino in-person voting was up over 150% from the same time in 2012. Now, I want you to understand that this does not mean that we know which way those people voted. But if you've got more registered Democrats voting, they're more likely to vote Democrat, obviously. If you've got a big surge in Latino voters, they're more likely to vote against Donald Trump. So that gives you an indication that she's doing better in Nevada and Florida because of early voting and the fact that she's organized and she's running against a schmuck who couldn't organize himself out of a paper bag. That's why so many of his companies went bankrupt, because he is grotesquely incompetent. And it matters in this election. So, now to me, the most important numbers, and the ones that are the most concerning, are the ones that Nate Silver gives at 538. He gives this context. He says, there's also a reason to think that a polling error is more likely than usual this year because of the high number of undecided voters. In the national polls, Clinton averages about 45% of the vote and Trump 42%. By comparison, Obama led Mitt Romney roughly 49 to 48 in national polls at the end of the 2012 campaign. That contributes significantly to uncertainty since neither candidate has enough votes yet to have the election in the bag. Okay, that is monumentally important. Now, the reason I was so confident about the Obama-Romney race back in 2012 was because all of the numbers were in. The polling was very clear, and there was not this extra group of voters floating out in space. Maybe I go to a third party. Maybe I go to Clinton. Maybe I go to Trump. I'm still undecided. This thing is one day before the election. So those guys, the difference between 49 to 48, which is very settled, obviously, as you can tell, versus 45 to 42, is a significant percentage there that is enough to swing an election that, according to the national polling, has Hillary Clinton up by just 2.5%. If you're concerned about that, yes, you should be. You should be. So, now, this is me talking. I think Hillary Clinton's organizational advantage is not reflected in the polling. Now, that makes sense. Just think about it. They're polling likely voters. So that's your random set of voters in any particular state. Let's take Nevada. But they're not polling based on who is going to get out their side more effectively in early voting because they have better ground game and a more effective campaign. Well, you can't, put that into a poll. In a poll, you're just asking a random set of voters in Nevada, at least among likely voters, who they're going to vote for. So you also have to take in that organizational advantage that Hillary Clinton has. And now this is totally my super rough sense of it. There's no numbers on this. It's not a percent difference. Now, in a state like Florida that is razor thin, Nevada, New Hampshire, razor thin, that 1 to 2% could make all the difference in the world. But some states have early voting, like Florida and Nevada, and watch on election day for if she does a little bit better than the polling there in those states. Some states like Pennsylvania do not have early voting, so her organizational advantage will still matter in getting out the vote on that day, on election day, but won't matter as much as in the states where they have early voting. So score another possible 1 to 2 points, as I said, for organization to Hillary Clinton. Now, there is an advantage that Donald Trump has that is even vaguer, and certainly not put into any of the polling, as you'll see in a second. I call it the fuck it advantage. Okay, and I've got that at 1.5 to 2.5 points for Donald Trump. So, let's discuss. This is not my gut. of like, you know what, I speak for the American people here. It's also not polling by any stretch of the imagination. It's not hard numbers. It's obviously my guess at it. But it is my analysis of the mood of the country that is far more populist than people in Washington and New York think. So in that establishment bubble, they think, what populist rage? I don't know what you're talking about. Now look, that was my analysis of the country 3 years ago, when in 2013, I said that Bernie Sanders could beat Hillary Clinton. Of course, back then, they're like, oh, wild-eyed radical. That's never going to have Bernie Sanders. The most liberal senator. The guy who goes he'll never be competitive. He'll never be competitive. Turns out, he was competitive. He got 46% of the vote with no name recognition in the Democratic primary because the country is in an angry mood. Donald Trump dismissed throughout the primaries. I didn't dismiss him. I said all the way back in June of 2015 that I thought he was the most likely guy to win in the Republican race. Why? Because there is a populist rage that we can see. But the establishment cannot see it because in their bubble everything is lovely. They don't understand. Not only do they not understand why you're bothered, they don't even know you're bothered. Okay? Because they just don't know your pain. And there is a certain number of people who want to take a brick and throw it through a window. Now, through the establishment window. Now, look, some of that is already put into the polling. That's why Trump does well when, a lot of those guys are already in Trump's numbers. I'm perfectly aware of that. But there is an undecided number there, as we just explained, that is larger than usual. And when they go into the voting booth, are they more likely in that undecided batch to go, you know what, I think the establishment does have my best interests in mind. Let me vote for the person who looks like they're from the Hunger Games, the capital in the Hunger Games. Or are they more likely to go, somebody hand me a brick, fuck it, throw it through their window, see what happens. Now, I don't like the way it is now. I don't have a lot of hope. Let's just change it and see what happens. Now, the actual number itself, 1.5% to 2.5% that I put on it. Of course we don't know that, right? That's my best guess. So, the fucking advantage is slightly larger than the organizational advantage that Hillary Clinton has, which leaves you at, I don't know, 65-35. I think Nate Silver's right. Okay, so, this is the important part. Let me show you the electoral map. So, this is from 270 Win. They got a great interactive map there. Blue is obviously Hillary Clinton, and red is Donald Trump. Those states are about as locked in as you can get. You know, some claim that that Hillary Clinton has a chance in Georgia or Arizona. I don't believe that at all. Some claim that I'm a tiny bit concerned about Michigan, but overall, she's had a very solid lead there throughout. So the gray ones, obviously, are the ones that are important. So those are the ones that, at this late date, one day before the election, are a little unsettled. It is, Nevada is unclear, Colorado leans Hillary Clinton, North Carolina leans Donald Trump, Pennsylvania leans Hillary Clinton, New Hampshire is anybody's guess, and Florida is anybody's guess. So, if you think that the blue and the red are really solid there, and I think that they pretty much are, then you've got Hillary Clinton at 239 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 214. You know, people always talk about, she's got an unassailable lead. He's got to really run the board to win. No, he doesn't. He just has to win enough of those remaining 6 critical states. So on election night, as we do our coverage, youtube.com/TYT, when the East Coast comes in, buckle up. Because New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, enormously important. Okay? So now let me share with you the map as I had it 3 weeks ago. And this is why I said that Hillary Clinton would win with 272 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. That gets you the majority. I mean, it doesn't get any closer than that. That's as razor thing as it gets. There on that map, it says 264 for Trump, but in my estimation, it's actually 266 because of the way that Nebraska and Maine vote. I think that he'll get all of Nebraska and he'll get one extra vote, electoral college vote in Maine, so that'll put him at 266. So what I did there was I gave Colorado to Hillary Clinton, but I think that Trump will pull out Nevada, and I think that he'll pull out Florida and North Carolina, and I have her winning Pennsylvania and New Hampshire. That barely gets her home. So that's why, if she loses New Hampshire, it's a tiny state, only 4 electoral college votes. Oops, she loses the whole election. If it goes down like that. Now, if you hear that she won North Carolina, it's over. She won. Because that means she'll likely have won in Pennsylvania and or Florida, and she gets all those North Carolina votes. You could rest fairly easy. If you hear that he has won Pennsylvania, begin your heart attack. Because if he wins Pennsylvania, there's only one way out for her. Then she's got to win Florida. So it might be the reverse of my map, meaning like he wins Pennsylvania unexpectedly. I think that's very possible. And she wins Florida. She pulls out Florida, and Florida, very ironically, comes in to save the country. But as you can tell from that map, and Huffington Post analysis, Nate Silver's analysis, every analysis out there, and sprinkled in with my sense of the populist rage / organization, this election is, in fact, really, really close. So, in my opinion, we are flirting with disaster. Let's hope we don't meet it tomorrow. Okay, now, one more story for you guys in this segment, and that is what happens if Trump wins. NBC News with a story out on who might be in Donald Trump's cabinet if he were to win. Buckle up for this basket of deplorables. So this is from 3 unnamed sources inside the Trump campaign. So they say that leading candidate for Attorney General is Rudy Giuliani. It's Giuliani time if Trump wins. So if you thought stop and frisk was a nightmare in New York City, if you think that Rudy Giuliani has been unhinged in his television appearances, if you're a minority and you didn't like the way Giuliani treated minorities in New York, buckle up. He's about to do that on a national scale if Trump wins. Okay, these are Trump insiders saying that they're going this direction. They're not saying this is a warning. Are you kidding me? They're bragging about it. They're like, yeah, Giuliani will be Attorney General. That is the head of the, our legal branch, obviously, within the executive branch. So, imagine what he does with the FBI and the Justice Department. Oh, God. Secretary of State, you need a good diplomat here, someone who's recent, even-keeled. Nope. Newt Gingrich. The damage this guy can do across the world. Bull meat China shop. Okay. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn for Defense Secretary. He's actually not technically eligible because he hasn't been out of the military for 7 years, but the Trump team cares. They might also make him National Security Advisor, or they can ask for an exception to the 7-year rule. Now, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn has been on the campaign trail, saying rabid things about how we got to bomb everybody to oblivion on behalf of Donald Trump. He's also been greeted very warmly by Vladimir Putin. Now, this is not conjecture. He actually went over to Moscow and had dinner with him, and for some sort of RT anniversary or something along those lines. So there's some concerns about whether he should be getting national security briefings, given how close he is to Putin. Well, he'll be getting them as defense secretary. So, and then chief of staff, a little surprising for Donald Trump, Reince Priebus is apparently the leading candidate. He's the head of the RNC. It's more of an establishment Republican, but has been weaselly and friendly enough to Donald Trump and done his bidding enough. Good boy. You might get chief of staff. And so that would also be an olive branch to the establishment, while still having a guy who Trump trusts enough because of how this campaign went. That to me is, a parade of horribles, a basket of deplorables, and look, parade of horribles is things that not likely to happen, except we're one day from the election. And it really might happen. If Trump wins, those are the guys in charge. I know there's some progressives out there making the case for, no, we'll be able to coalesce and fight against Trump. And okay, Giuliani's going to let you coalesce. Trump's been saying it. Giuliani's been saying it. We need to monitor our opponents. Whether it's in their mind, of course, Muslims are opponents, so we're going to monitor their mosques. We're going to go to universities, target Muslim students, target Latinos, blacks, etc. Who else would they target? You're going to roll the dice with these guys in charge of America for 4 years. Okay. I'm not going to roll that dice. So, now, finally, we go to a story about Trump's role in all this. Well, it turns out, NBC reports, Trump himself has not taken an active part in transition efforts, in part out of superstition. Oh, Jesus. He fears too much planning before a victory might jinx the campaign. No, too much planning might win a campaign. Not enough planning might jinx a campaign because you didn't plan enough. Now look, this, of course, I understand is for if he wins, and usually both sets of candidates have a transition team in place, and in this case, Chris Christie is in charge of his transition team, whose two aides just got convicted in New Jersey. The two people that he picked are now convicted felons in New Jersey. So that's the guy in charge of his transition team. Nice job there, Donald Trump. But, you make some planning and you say, hey, look, if I win, we're going to go in this direction. That's a normal part of how you do this. But, of course, Trump's like, no planning, that'll jinx things, okay? All right, no, you guys, these are the selections you like. Okay, all right, hey, don't talk to me about it. But he's also done no planning in his overall campaign to win the presidency. That's why he's getting, according to early numbers, getting routed in early voting in places like Nevada and Florida, with so many more registered Democrats showing up than registered Republicans. The way you jinx yourself if you don't do planning, Donald Trump, but that's classic Trump move. So, now you know, so don't come around getting surprised if Trump wins, like, oh my God, look at Giuliani and Gingrich, and I couldn't believe it. I believe it, because that's exactly what they're going to do. All right, we'll be right back. In a lot of ways.
I'm going to ask some uncomfortable questions.
Right
I feel like I'm missed out.
So what is going on? If I don't eat, my head's going to explode.
As I take my shirt off, just goes, is that your body?
Now we move to inappropriate story number 2.
I just never felt guilty about masturbation.
It's amazing.
I could take partial credit for opening up your sexuality.
I was a kid in the pool with a shirt on. Let's just call it what it is. I was that kid.
Well, you deal with the bitch side of it, right? But you're my boss, so that's what happens.
I think we're more likely to go in there. They do see it from a frame of the rich and the powerful, and they don't realize it. The last time that happened, we elected Abraham Lincoln. I don't know, wouldn't it be wonderful if we unfuck the world?
You and I are disasters.
Don't stereotype all cops, don't stereotype all any blowing up like Dave Kohler on Twitter. Oh, that's pretty good progress. I didn't know you could leave positive comments. It's a very TYT thing. So you have a whole bunch of depressing stuff. So that at the end I can give you a winning is, in terms of change and positive change, is not just possible, it's inevitable.
Great time to be alive.
Let's burn this mother down. That's what you're saying? Fuck it, let's go do it. That's why I thank you guys for being members. Because together, we got their attention. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, stay strong. It's time to go. Go how?
Look out! They're here. Come on. Let us take care of them.
Okay. Thanks.
Come on. You get our sister.
Okay. Done. See ya. We're really doing this?
Jump already.
Couldn't have timed that better.
It's a good thing I actually caught you.
Whoa, the laughing glasses.
Hey, we meet again. Wait, what did you call me? Oh, Captain Ferris called you that once. I think he's just mimicking her.
Yep.
To us vampire. Anyway, we never did get to thank you. You were so helpful when... Well, I don't want to sound ungrateful. Your fast craft did get us to the low seas, but now whenever I hear rushing water, I remember what it was like almost dying, and yeah, it really scarred me for life. Oh yeah? Well, why don't you tell me about it inside?
Check it out! Is the whole building float? This place is choco-vicious! Amazed me the first time I saw it, too.
This is it. Home base for the League of S.
Alarm guard. Wow. We can't go anywhere else?
Hey, you don't think...
Tweets. Okay. Marty Rosie writes in, finally it's almost over. I'm ready to fight whoever gets into office. I'm right there with you, Marty. Okay. Eldo Wende Chingon writes in, I don't want to see a President Clinton again, but I do want to see Trump humiliated. Come on, landslide. Smooth writes in, though Hillary has the far better organization, Trump still has more enthusiasm. How that plays out tomorrow is vital in swing states. You're not only smooth, you're correct. So that is absolutely right. That's what's got me on pins and needles today. By the way, if you saw me on Saturday night, if I had to do the show Saturday night, it would have been a totally different show. I would have been like, that's it! It's over! We're going to lose! I know, man. I'm worried, man. I'm worried. You know that Macintosh ad from back, I think, in 1984, where the guy takes that hammer and then throws it through the giant TV screen? That's what I'm worried about. Sir Rabies writes in, there's a third option. There's a third option for undecideds. Damn, that line is long. Fuck it. That's true. And I don't know which way that goes, but here's a shout out to Rabies. That's really funny. The last one, Gabby Marita writes in, counting on Florida to save us all is sort of like counting on Godzilla to save Tokyo. I hear you. Here's what I don't want to be the first words of the next president on Tuesday night.
Abi Kibar, Trump, Sarkar.
Okay. All right, let's go to the Hillary Clinton emails, or the lack thereof. Okay. So James Comey threw a giant monkey wrench into this election with 11 days before the vote. He came out and said, oh, I found 650,000 new emails. Actually, he didn't give the number on the day of. And, oh my God, hey, I just wanted to inform Congress my investigation might not be over. Oh, for God's sake, what have you done? And then we learned immediately thereafter that he hadn't read any of the emails. In fact, they needed a warrant to even read the emails. So why send out a national alert 11 days ahead of time going, watch out, the investigation might be over. Then Trump people get excited. They're like, we knew it. They're going to reopen the investigation. They're going to indict her. Every rational person said, what's in the damn emails? Even if you're on Trump's side and you think it's all really bad, you want to know what's in the emails. If you're on Hillary Clinton's side and you think there's nothing in there at all and there's much to do about nothing, what's in the goddamn emails? So, we asked Comey here on the Young Turks, for God's sake, you've got a lot of folks at the FBI, read the damn emails. And make sure you get them read before the election. And he listened to us. So he put out a statement thanking the Young Turks. No, he didn't. Okay, but he did put out a statement saying, okay, we went through them. It turns out, yeah, you can go through them. It's not that hard. So, just yesterday, he wrote, since my letter, the FBI investigative team has been working around the clock to process and review a large volume of emails from a device obtained in connection with an unrelated criminal investigation, that's referring to Anthony Weiner. During that process, we reviewed all the communications that were to or from Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State. Based on our review, we have not changed our conclusions that we expressed in July with respect to Secretary Clinton, which means we are not reopening our investigation. There are no grounds for a reasonable prosecutor to go forward. Now, whether you agreed with that analysis back in July or not, Comey is now saying, that's it. It's as close as it's ever been. There's nothing new in those emails at all. Finally, he says, I'm very grateful to the professionals at the FBI for doing an extraordinary amount of high-quality work in a short period of time. And, of course, the Trump people lose it. And they're like, I knew it, it's Rick Comey! But wait, you guys were the ones saying just 8 days ago how Comey was awesome, and he was going to uncover it all, and he was going to indict Hillary Clinton. Both sides are so unbearable. Politicians are, I can't stand them. I cover them, but I can't stand them. All the Democrats came down like a ton of bricks on Comey earlier, which I'm going to tell you about. Now they're like, all right, back on Comey's team. All right, let's go. Jimmy Comey! The Republicans, when he announced, 10 days ago, they're like, yes! Now they're like, goddamn Comey! We knew he was a traitor. So Trump writes, you can't review 650,000 new emails in 8 days. We'll find out if that's true in a second. General Flynn, one of the surrogates for Trump, says, impossible. He says there are 691,200 seconds in 8 days. Comey has thoroughly reviewed 650,000 emails in 8 days. An email a second? Impossible. That's not how computers work. Okay, so Jeff Jarvis did a great job. He actually asked the guy who does know how computers work, Edward Snowden. All right, he might know a thing or two. And he wrote this incredibly confusing tweet that has a very clear message at the end. He wrote, drop non-responsive to CC, BCC, hash, post sets, then subtract those that match. Okay, no idea what that means. Okay, but this last line is clear. Old laptops could do it in minutes to hours. Okay, the bottom line here is, they already know that some of the emails match the earlier emails they have. You run a computer program that matches those emails. Boom, they're gone, because that means you already read them. And then you've got a new set of emails that are, some are personal, some are going to Hillary Clinton, some are coming from Hillary Clinton. You drop the ones that are not going to or from Hillary Clinton, boom, those are gone. And then you read the ones that went to Hillary Clinton or came from Hillary Clinton that do not match any of the emails you've already read. Voila! much easier. Okay, I love the Republicans who are so afraid of science and technology. They're like, what is this technology you speak of? Hey, how can you possibly do that? No, I cannot read those many emails. I can read a smaller amount of emails. That's not how it works. Okay, so now I want to turn to the Democrats, though, because they're also unbearable. Before Comey came out and said, oh, yeah, never mind, all the Democrats, top Democrats, were threatening him. Harry Reid, Pelosi. Here, let's show you Nancy Pelosi. Here's what she had said.
I think he made a mistake on this, and he clearly has a double standard. So I think he made a mistake. And these jobs, if you're not in it for a while, you can't take the heat. And I think he just couldn't take the heat from the Republicans. Do you think he should resign? No, I'm not going to that place.
Okay, so she's basically saying he can't take the heat. Maybe he can't handle the job. I'm not saying he should resign yet. Well, Chuck Schumer was a little bit clearer. He said, I do not have confidence in him any longer. Now, Chuck Schumer might be the Senate Majority Leader, who certainly be at least the Senate Minority Leader, a very powerful person in Washington, basically saying, you better hope Hillary Clinton doesn't win, because we're going to fire you. He also said, to restore my faith, I'm going to have a sit-down and talk to him, and get an explanation for why he did this. Now, I thought the Comey move was totally wrong. That being said, the Democrats, sometimes with subtext and sometimes very clearly threatening to fire him, is also political and also not a great way to go. But they brought a lot of pressure on him to get those emails read, and he did. By the way, they're not the only ones putting pressure on him. There's another set of folks that are unacceptable in this. Is there anyone who is acceptable? I mean, everyone's doing things that are wrong because they're driven mad by this election. So, the last group is a group inside the FBI. The Guardian found sources inside the FBI that say, look, in essence, it's a madhouse in here. Some people are on Comey's side and defending his actions, saying he couldn't help it. This is what he had to do. He had to inform Congress, and he didn't have enough evidence on Hillary Clinton, defending on both sides. Some people are technical. Some people are on Clinton's side. Some people are on Trump's side. It turns out there's more people on Trump's side. So here's one source, an FBI agent working there right now, that says Clinton is, quote, the Antichrist personified to a large swath of FBI personnel. And that is, quote, the reason why they're leaking is that they're pro-Trump. So now, look, let's keep it real. In the real world, yeah, people that work at the FBI and other government offices are not these angels that are above politics and, oh, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, why, I don't know anything about them, and I don't have any opinions about them. No, some of them are going to have very strong opinions. And if you have strong opinions about these candidates, you're definitely on one side or the other. It's not like Mitt Romney or Paul Ryan. Oh, I really can't tell the difference. You can tell the difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. If you got a bunch of Trump guys inside the FBI, and they're leaking all over the place, oh yeah, Clinton's ballot, all the emails, right? And they're pressuring Comey, oh, you better tell them we got new emails. That's why it might happen. Finally, that FBI agent also told The Guardian, which way does it lean overall? Is it more pro-Trump, more pro-Clinton? Well, there's not a lot of love for Clinton in the building at all. And there's a whole bunch of FBI agents, to be fair, who are don't love Donald Trump either. They think that he has problems with competence. Exactly what I've been telling you all along. They think Hillary Clinton might be corrupt, and they think Donald Trump is incompetent. That is some portion of the people inside the FBI. But there's apparently a large enough chunk of Trump supporters of the FBI that he said, quote, the FBI is Trump land. Now, if you think it's Trump land now, if Donald Trump wins, and he lets those guys loose, and lets them do investigations on his enemies, and Trump has said it 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, on tape, over and over again. He's like, I like revenge. You got to show people that, if they oppose you, that there's going to be consequences. You got to get even. You got to get more than even. And he releases Trumpland FBI on people. Oh boy. Anyway, for the moment being, though, it appears one day before the election, we have a conclusion to the new set of emails. A big nothing burger. Okay, there wasn't anything in them that they didn't already know. So on that note, bring it down. Okay. Now, let's go to attack against Trump. Okay. So over the weekend, Donald Trump is speaking at another one of his rallies, and he is attacked in Reno, Nevada. At least that's what it appears. And you can see here, it gets pretty nervous as the Secret Service comes out. Let me show you the video, and then I'll tell you what actually happened.
Secret Service rushed Trump off the stage. Reno police and SWAT teams descended. They took the man into custody.
Nobody is going to stop this movement! Nobody! Your next president of the United States will be back in a couple of minutes, so hang tight. We love your Trump train. Let's go! Nobody said it was going to be easy for us. But we will never be stopped. Never, ever be stopped.
Nobody's going to stop this move, because it turns out nobody was trying. I'll give you the details on that in a second. This is the second time that Trump had a scare on stage. In March, I believe, in Ohio, he had another scare. This is what happened back then.
Well, call up Carrier, the president, because I have to do it myself. I know it's not...
That never gets old. Okay, so by the way, Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders had similar scares at different times. They were perfectly calm. But I don't begrudge Trump for freaking out. Look, if you thought somebody was going to be shooting at you, you might freak out too. So I get it. But in this case, it turns out much ado about nothing. So let's go to a couple of witnesses as to what really happened. And then I think that story's even more interesting. Let's watch.
A guy in a red shirt just brushed right next to me, screaming, "There's a guy with a gun." I guess he saw it as the guy had a sign with Mr. Trump's face covered. As they were trying to get his sign down, there was another gentleman standing by me with an orange shirt. He jumped the guy first, and then right afterwards the Secret Service came down, and then police shot right in.
You didn't see a gun?
I did not.
So you didn't see any weapon?
I was, by that point, by the time I got in and shot my video, the guy was already on the floor.
Yeah. He didn't see a weapon because there wasn't a weapon. The Secret Service went in, they got the guy, they talked to him. It turns out there was no gun at all. Somebody panicked for no reason. Here, let's go to second witness.
I heard someone scream, "This guy has a gun." So I looked towards, the guy that he was talking about. It was a guy. It didn't look to me like he had a gun, or at least I didn't see a gun. But people were screaming that he did have a gun, and immediately after that, Trump was taken off stage.
Okay, that's okay. It's okay. Anyway, no, he didn't. In fact, he was a Republican. Now, he happened to be against Trump. But you know what he had? He had something that was very dangerous, a sign. The sign read, "Republicans against Trump." Whoa, everybody panic. So, we actually have the guy. The Secret Service talked to him, and they're like, oh, he's just a perfectly normal protester. It turns out what happened to him, though, might be the real crime. Here he is explaining what happened.
I'm actually a Republican, so I'm a Republican and have been supporting Republican candidates for quite some time, but I just don't support Donald Trump. I just came with a sign. I literally just had one sign that said "Republicans against Trump." And when I pulled out the sign, people around me were trying to grab the sign. And so all that was occurring was booing, of course. That's what you would expect, right? You're in the middle of a rally. The people around me are booing, saying, "Get out of here," and yelling profanities. And then all of a sudden, because they couldn't grab the sign or whatever happened, bam, I get tackled by all these people who were just like kicking me, grabbing me in the crotch, and just beating the crap out of me. And somebody yelled something about a gun.
Right.
And so that's where things really got out of hand. I mean, people are just, kicking me, grabbing my arms, twisting them. And finally, I'm very thankful for the law enforcement who was able to quickly come. Because had they not been there, it's possible that these people could have, strangled me and killed me right on the spot.
I've been there, man. I told this story in one of our post games, tytnetwork.com/join to become a member and get those post games, about how I was attacked by an angry Cuban crowd back during the Elian Gonzalez days. And that is a scary place to be, man. And just like this guy, all I had was a sign. I thought they should send Elian home. Boom! They shredded the sign, attacked me, punched me, kicked me, etc. So, and I remember when the cops showed up, they were like, hey, one of the cops I remember said, don't put him in the car to look like he's getting arrested. Another cop's like, look, I'm afraid for my life. We gotta go, right? Those angry mobs are dangerous, dangerous places. They asked me, I was like, let's get in the cop car and go. Okay. And this guy says the same thing. Thank God the cops showed up. So it turns out there was a crime. The crime against the protester. He's just a Republican saying, hey, I'm against Trump. And they viciously assaulted him. Has anybody been arrested for that yet? They should go back to the tape, find all the people who assaulted him, and arrest them. Because you don't get to do that. Look at what is happening here. So now it's become perfectly commonplace. If you're at a Trump rally and you dare disagree, they shred you. And then if you're lucky, the cops come and rescue you. If you're not lucky, the cops come and arrest you, as we've seen many, many times. Maybe in this case, he didn't get arrested because he was a Republican. So despite that, of course, the Trump people are going to continue to paint this as something heroic for Donald Trump. One of his campaign spokespeople said Hillary Clinton ran away from rain today because it was downpour in Florida and she had to cancel an appearance there. Ran away from rain today. Trump is back on stage minutes after an assassination attempt. Yeah, except it wasn't an assassination attempt, and you know it. The Secret Service said, no, he was just the calmest protester in American history. Oh my God, we're so heroic. But to be fair to Trump, there was an assassination attempt on him earlier. I feel like we're the only ones who covered it. Yes, if you can Google it, it exists. It actually happened. But it's amazing how little coverage it got. It was this guy named Michael Sanford. He is a young immigrant from the UK. And they're about to do a plea deal. It looks like he's only going to get 2 years. He's trying to grab a cop's gun and shoot Donald Trump. And he said he had practiced for it, and he wanted to assassinate Donald Trump. It's just amazing, man. This whole election has been an education for me because I didn't know how race-obsessed this country was. People say, oh, you cover race stories too much. No. We're not the ones who are race-obsessed. We're just pointing things out. The reason I say that in this context is, my God, you know it. If a Muslim man tried to kill Donald Trump, that's all anybody would talk about. And I said on the day of the assassination attempt, oh my God, that's terrible. I'm so glad that it didn't work, and that guy should be in jail for a long, long time. But I predicted on that day that the press and the Trump team would just drop it. That if a Muslim had tried to kill him, they would talk about it nonstop and say, we told you, look at this, ISIS is here. ISIS tried to kill Trump, but they couldn't do it. If it was a Mexican guy who had done it, well, I told you, they're criminals, and they're coming across the border, and yada, yada. It's a young white kid from the UK. They're like, yeah, who cares? Let's move on. I told you they'd move on, and they did. So it is a dangerous business. I'm glad that they caught Michael Sanford, who had actually done that assassination attempt. I don't know why he's going to get such a low penalty, honestly. I know he didn't succeed, but he had a plan. He wanted to kill Trump. But it's amazing that since he's white, we're like, oh, he's not even worth covering. Not a big deal. There's been more coverage of this fake assassination attempt than there was of the real assassination attempt. Man, this country's unbelievable. I didn't know it was this bad. But if you're white, you want to try to assassinate Trump, not a big deal. If you're Muslim or Mexican or black, oh my God, we know it! These Black Lives Matters guys, they're out of control! So anyway, thank God none of those guys have tried anything, and that Sanford didn't succeed, and that this guy who's a legitimate protester is actually okay, because he could have been really hurt. Alright, now, I'm moving forward. So Donald Trump has his last video out. This is a commercial to try to get people on his side. It has two ways. There's two ways you can look at it. Okay, it has a very clear downside, and number two, unfortunately, I think it might be somewhat effective. Now, I want you to try to notice the people that he's showing when he's talking about the global special interest and the people out there to screw you. It's, in this case, Trump is usually not very subtle, but this is done by professionals that are on his side, so they know how to be more subtle. So let's take a look and see if you can pick up who they have on screen when they talk about the nefarious people wielding global power.
The establishment has trillions of dollars at stake for this election. For those who control the levers of power in Washington, and for the global special interest, they partner with these people that don't have your good in mind. The political establishment that is trying to stop us is the same group responsible for our disastrous trade deals, massive illegal immigration, and economic and foreign policies that have bled our country dry. It's a global power structure that is responsible for the economic decisions that have robbed our working class, stripped our country of its wealth, and put that money into the pockets of a handful of large corporations and political entities.
Okay, so sure, you see a bunch of Asian folks there, you see Latinos, and he's talking about how China's taking our jobs, Mexico's taking our jobs, but that wasn't really what they were going for. When he talked about global special interests, there were two recognizable faces that he put in there, other than, of course, the Democrats, like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Right at that time, he put in Janet Yellen, who's the head of the Federal Reserve, and George Soros. Now I get it, they're boogeyman of the Soros boogeyman on the left, which is ridiculous because he's a giant capitalist. But oh yeah, he funds everything on the left. He funded people who were fighting communism, but they never talk about it. Anyway, and Janet Yellen, I get it. A lot of people are upset about the Federal Reserve. I don't like the way that it's run. But okay, that's 2 out of 2 of recognizable faces that happen to be Jewish Americans. Okay? Then the third person that you could recognize outside of the Democrats was when he was talking about the giant corporations that rule us all. And the video even got darker there, got gloomier right before the ending. It was Lloyd Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs, who's also Jewish. Okay. If it's a mistake, it's a bad mistake. Don't go 3 for 3. So, look, you've got Trump supporters now talking about the former head of the Federal Reserve as Ben Shalom Bernanke. The way they used to call Barack Hussein Obama, right? So now it looks like they've got somebody else in their crosshairs too. And don't get me wrong, perfectly legitimate to criticize the Federal Reserve and the very curious way that it works, and quantitative easing is, I think, deeply problematic and bizarre. Goldman Sachs has done 1,000 things wrong, but they also did 1,000 things wrong when Hank Paulson was running it, and he's not Jewish, but whenever they want to pick people as the global special interests that are the enemy, they cherry pick. I know David Duke was on our program, and he did it. He would only mention Jewish bankers, and I would list a whole series of non-Jewish bankers at the same exact time. Guys like Moynihan, Vikram Pundit, Irish Americans, Indian Americans, etc. No, always Blankfein, and always Soros and Yellen and Bernanke, etc. So it's a dark path. Look, if you look at it and you think, it's no big deal, I don't care, they probably didn't mean it. I understand, because that one was subtle. But if you look at it and go, I'm a little concerned about exactly who they picked. Well, I share your concern. I remember when Glenn Beck, who now opposes Donald Trump, but he made a list of the global special interest on his famous whiteboard back in the day on Fox News Channel, and everyone on the list was Jewish. They don't have to be. Like I said, there's plenty of non-Jewish bankers. There's plenty of non-Jewish people in the media. I mean, you go back and watch my debate with David Duke on this, right? But they never talk about those guys. So it's deeply, deeply frustrating and concerning. Now, the second part, though, is also relevant. I think this kind of anti-establishment message does work. And that's why I get so frustrated with the Democrats, because the American people are very receptive to this. It's a powerful ad. I think it's actually maybe one of the better ads they've done, divorced from the horrible anti-Semitism in there, in my opinion. And this kind of populist message is going to work. It's either going to work from the left, where we actually head in the right direction, or it's going to work as in get people to vote for it on the right, and it's going to lead us in a dark, dark path. But what's not going to work going forward, it might work tomorrow on election day by the skin of their teeth. But if they think that the establishment is going to win another election, we've got the American people fooled. No, don't worry about it. Keep giving the banks, money at almost 0% interest rate. Meanwhile, the rest of us have to pay a lot more. Students have to pay a lot more. You can't afford anything anymore. But there's people who have the rules set on their side. That part is true. It just doesn't have anything to do with a religion. It has to do with campaign donations and the way that the system is structured. If you don't have an intelligent response from the left on how to fix that system, there's going to be a very unintelligent response from the right that is going to resonate. So if the Democratic Party thinks it's a winning strategy to be the party of the establishment, they are sorely mistaken. Let's hope they survive this election, because I don't want to go populist right, because that is a bad path to be on. But if they survive this election, they better get their head out of the sand, because they won't survive another populist attack. And so that populist attack should come from the left. It should be filled with logic and reason and productive changes to the system, rather than the ridiculous and bigoted populism of the right that you see in full display here. Okay. Now, let's go to one more story here. Not really related to this. It happens to be, it's not related. It's just, this is a fun story, okay? Scotty Nell Hughes has been on TV a long time for Donald Trump. She's all over the place, and apparently she's a little tired, because she's going to criticize the Clintons for bringing in Jay-Z and Beyonce to campaign for them in Ohio. Getting out the black vote is, of course, terrible, terrible thing to do. And getting out the young vote, don't do that. They don't vote Republican. So she's going to talk about Jay-Z's profane lyrics, and listen to what she says.
I think also when you look at Jay-Z, and we talked about this that night, that he might be working on it, but one of his main videos starts off with a crowd throwing Molotov cocktails at the police, and this very much anti-police message that Beyonce has had this year.
Molotov cocktails. And what about
Jewish side coming out.
I don't know what a Mazel Tov cocktail is, but it sounds delicious. Congratulations! Was that a shout?
Though the thought of Sin, the giant whale beast,
she mentioned the Jewish side there. I looked at it.
Is ultimately Seymour Gladstone.
Her mom is not only Jewish, but very Jewish. Okay, I don't know how you're very Jewish, but okay.
Seymour is the land of Sierra,
she
a
herself
well-respected magic user with a pleasant attitude and seemingly courteous nature, even fighting with your party at one point in the game.
She's not the only one to do this. Remember when Michelle Bachmann said this?
Disguises something grim.
Because he has a lot of
the world to the point of viewing death as a service to the living.
And all life would end thus, Mira. All suffering would end.
Thus, Seymour's endgame being the world's destruction and the end of humanity feels like the logical extreme.
I will give you your death. You seem to want it so.
Number 5, Bane Solidor, Final Fantasy XII.
I must apologize for my delay in welcoming you aboard my ship.
Bane, you magnificent bastard. The son of the Emperor of Arcadia, Solidor is not one to stand around twiddling his thumbs. He pronounced the intelligence as a military leader, and will go as far as murder to gain the goal of dynasty.
Hillary being sincere, which says $12 is enough for the minimum wage.
Anybody who tells you $12 is enough for the minimum wage is not only not being sincere, they don't give a damn about you.
No bank is too big to fail, and no executive too powerful to jail.
She is pretty dead set on protecting big banks.
We're tired of money in politics, and we're tired of the corruption.
At what else is in fact, the draft our attention, starting to fall in 90%.
When do we actually decide to make a change as a people?
Bernie Sanders said, he wants a revolution. He wants a revolution. Well, I don't really want a revolution. I want a precedent.
Liberty fan all this time?
No, I've been a Liberty fan all this time.
Live was a raucous event. If you've ever seen one, I don't want to be recorded. He's not going to tell us anything. So.
He reminds me of like your drunk uncle at a wedding who gets up and starts talking and just loves the crowd.
They're trying to ethnically cleanse white people.
Push me out. Why don't you like that?
Hey, Dixieland, I'll take my stand.
Manufactured beings are sure dissatisfied with life. This seems to be the case for Kuja, a genome built to ignite war between fellow humans from behind the curtain. However, his plan actually runs deeper than that. He wants to be free of his creator and seeks to rule the dual worlds of Terra and Gaia. Kuja comes across as almost sympathetic, yearning for the freedom and purpose that we all seek. Even if he is a villain, he's flawed enough to be relatable on some level. Number 2, Sephiroth, Final Fantasy VII. The one-winged angel leaves his mark. Sephiroth is quite the villain, a tragic man fueled by a lack of identity and rage from being used. He began as a hero, a soldier first class who was admired by many, including the young hero-to-be, Cloud Strife. That changed in Nibelheim, where he learned of his origins as a genetically modified being. Sephiroth's legacy is one of madness and devastation. Whenever the fallen hero shows up, the death count is almost guaranteed to increase, and the world gets a little more grim. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions. Our one per game rule will not apply here.
Humans have no business here.
What? Jeremy!
We have neither dreams nor honor.
Number 1, Kefka Palazzo, Final Fantasy VI.
Let's destroy everything!
There's a lot of reasons why Kefka stands out amongst the villains of Final Fantasy. He's certainly the most unrepentant, scheming behind Emperor Gastel's back and gleefully slaughtering countless people. His plan is simple, yet grandiose, consisting of destroying the world and attaining godlike power, both of which he manages to accomplish. He is the worst of humanity incarnate, arrogant, conceited, narcissistic, cruel, bloodthirsty, and sadistic to the point of madness.
Destroy more! Have got to destroy more!
For us, though, it all comes down to that laugh. That creepy one-note laugh. Do you agree with our list?
It's not bad, really, once you get used to it.
What's your favorite Final Fantasy villain? For more endearing top 10s published every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.
Very well. As you wish.
Spanning 14 games with a 15th on the way, Final Fantasy is one of the longest series of RPGs, and definitely one of the most beloved. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 Final Fantasy moments. For this list, we're looking at memorable scenes from one of the world's most beloved JRPG series, scenes with strong emotional and narrative impact. We're talking about the iconic moments that have made Final Fantasy one of the most epic video game series in history. To no one's surprise, this list will be full of spoilers, but you've been warned. kidnaps Princess Garnet, or tries to. Final Fantasy IX. In what's probably the most comical opening to a Final Fantasy game ever, Zidane and his talented band of performers/bandits put on a play for Princess Garnet's 16th birthday, all with the intention of kidnapping her. Don't worry, it's not as sketchy as it sounds. It turns out that the princess is totally looking for a way out of her corrupt kingdom ever since her mother began acting strangely. This opening is theatrical, musical, and even a little bit romantic, as Zidane whisks Garnet off to start their whirlwind adventure. Number 9. Cecil becomes a paladin. Final Fantasy. Stay back.
Isn't it funny how it took almost a year and a half for the first batch of emails and 9 days for the second?
Some pretty awesome scenes.
It is funny, but to be fair to them, they had already read the earlier batch, so all they do is match to see if they were the same email. So it's a little easier the second time around.
Struggling to come to terms with the corruption of his beloved kingdom of Baron.
Steve Alvarez writes in, right-wing has been breathlessly inventing scandals for decades. They ignore real corruption that serve their agenda. That's exactly right. In fact, I'm going to do a story on that next. And then Dave's Got Mad writes in, Kobe still fucked up 10 days ago, and yesterday made zero difference.
Ready to strike down
He's not talking about it as any mention of emails hurt. That's right in so many different ways, because
it's a triumph moment for our hero.
There was early voting,
a turning point in the story.
So a lot of people voted already, without knowing that those emails had nothing in them whatsoever. So the damage is done on people that have already voted, let alone
Number 8.
absentee voting,
Final Fantasy Tactics.
Absentee voting that has already happened, and so many people won't get the second.
Kidnapping a girl is a tried and true tactic in every villain's arsenal. And poor Pietro was yet another dime a dozen damsel in distress for her brother to lead out to rescue. Except things didn't exactly go that way.
Alright, member shoutouts are Ann Wilkinson is member number 541 and Adam Stone is member number 542. We have a special post game for you guys today.
To the Zeke Fortress, Ranza and Delita's heroic rescue is complicated by the appearance of the Order of the Northern Sky.
And tell you about the special cases of how Maine, Nebraska,
in the chaos,
and
Pietro is killed by the treacherous Vargas. And the fortress goes up in flames as Delita cradles his sister's body. Let's just say that he doesn't take it well.
He's Native American, and he's decided that he's not going to vote for Hillary Clinton, even if she wins Washington, which she almost certainly will. So how he can swing the election. That's for the members at tytnetwork.com/join. Discussion of the state races and ballot
measures. Gangs finally together. Fireworks are going up in the skies above Daly City, all in celebration of one very special lady.
Races was on Friday's postgame. That's also for the members. All right, one last thing before we get back to the stories. Apparently, while we were on the air today,
ultimate party faux pas.
Jordan Charrington has broken yet another story about Donna Brazil. She apparently
we always knew that Squall wasn't exactly a social
more questions ahead of time in the debates. So now CNN has admitted it thoroughly, and over the weekend, Brian Seltzer talking about how it's embarrassing with CNN, terrible, etc. And then he was shocked to find gambling in this establishment.
Climaxing in an epic confrontation.
But anyway, we'll have more on that for you once I can press the story. Okay, now, let's go to some of those actors here.
Number 6. Infiltrating Don Corneo's manor.
New batch of Podesta emails and more bad news for Clinton if you're actually paying attention. So most people are distracted by
the iconic
FBI head fakes.
Many memorable scenes.
Some were dramatic enough. And Anthony Weiner emails which actually led to absolutely nothing. If you look at the WikiLeaks emails from John Podesta, there you find a treasure trove of actual information of how systemic corruption. So, go along to get along.
Thanks to Aerith
person X or corporation X or country X pays person Y,
other things,
they get a favor in return, and round we go. So if you want to know how American politics works, read the Podesta. Well, I got one for you regarding the Clinton Foundation today. And so, I know some people will say, Jake, it's the day before the election and you don't want Donald Trump to win. You're right, I don't. I think he's a monster. I don't want him. That doesn't stop the news. This is in the news today. And I've got to share it with you so you know how our system works.
Number 5, Gallup versus X-Step.
The Clinton
Final
Foundation has
Fantasy
confirmed it accepted a $1 million gift from Qatar.
Years before the tragedy of Aerith, fans of Final Fantasy were no strangers to the heart-wrenching experience of losing a major party member.
The agency review new or significantly increased support from foreign governments.
Gallup at least went out in a blaze of glory, taking on the game's big bad X-Step one-on-one and coming closer to victory than anyone else so far. Of course, all of his friends, his granddaughter, and the world all had to be in danger before Gallup activated his hidden ass-kicking powers. But that's just the way things go.
Atari officials pledged the money in 2011 to mark the 65th birthday
The old man who's been with you since the beginning of the game bites the dust, but doesn't go down without a fight.
sought to meet the former U.S. president in person the following year to present him the check.
Number 4, Titus and Yuna in
Foundation official to Hillary
Final
Clinton's
Fantasy
presidential campaign chairman, John Podesta. Hence, that's why we have this email. Okay, so
you can't help but feel for these.
At this point, you've got to realize that if
after all,
Secretary
Yuna
of
just
State,
left her husband to be at the
your
altar.
foundation shouldn't be getting
the
giant
crap out of
checks from foreign
That's how
governments.
you know
In fact,
we're meant to be.
Let's go to the sea.
we're supposed to report to the State Department.
Before the sunrise.
If it was getting
At this
those
point,
checks.
they've been through a
Well,
lot,
it turns
and
out,
Yuna's about
according
to
to
make
Reuters,
the
the State Department said it has
pilgrimage drawn
no
to a close.
record of being asked by the foundation to review any increases in support by a foreign government. So they did not report it when it is clearly material. In fact, that is the standard. They're supposed to report it when there is, quote,
In one of their last few moments alone,
materially
share this
by
tender moment,
one donor.
complete with romantic J-pop playing in the
If you've got
background.
a big check from one
Think
donor,
James Cameron
especially
played
if
this
it's a foreign government, while Hillary Clinton is Secretary of State, the Clinton Foundation has to tell the State Department, hey, heads up here, we got a big donation coming in, just letting you know.
Number 3, the opera scene,
For
Final
obvious
Fantasy
reasons.
6.
So did they in this case? So how do they explain it? Well, Foundation spokesman Brian Hoekstra this
How
week
do you get
said
an
it
airship?
accepted the $1
Why,
million
you could ask the
gift
ex-imperial
from
general
Qatar,
in your party to put on a dress,
but
learn to
this
sing,
did
and
not
take
amount
place
to
of the famous opera singer.
material
All in the hopes that a flying
in the
gambler
Gulf
will
countries'
kidnap her and take her
support
aboard
for
his
the
airship. This is, of course, all while thwarting the plans of the evil octopus.
And
Yeah, I know it's a stretch,
is not a
but
material
it leads to one of the most memorable
I mean,
scenes
the
ever.
only way you can say
Who
that
cares?
is if you say, you should see the other money we got. No, of course, $1 million
Final
is
Fantasy
a
VI gave us a
increase,
full
and of course
opera
you're
on
trying to
Super
hide it.
Nintendo, with complete movements, lyrics, and
Hey, they're gonna
vocalization.
meet with Bill
It's one of the best musical moments in video game
And Bill
history,
Clinton's going to say,
hands
don't worry,
down.
we got your back. Do you think that it was a coincidence that the government of Qatar decided to help Global Hope Initiative right on Bill Clinton's 65th birthday? And they're like,
Number
now,
2,
we have
Capcom destroys the
money
world.
to
Final Fantasy
make
6.
sure everybody's healthy across the world. Should we give it to Red Cross, to another thing, or should we give it to the Clinton Foundation? All right, Clinton Foundation. Oh,
If you've heard about Final Fantasy 6, you've heard of its maniacal, cackling, cold gesture of a villain, Kefka. Aside from upstaging every villain in the series with his hilarious one-liner, he's also famous for accomplishing what every villain ever has tried to do and failed.
You see, the guy who arranged a lot of this, young man from the Mayo Consulting
Even by today's standards, that's
about
a gutsy move to pull off in the middle of a game story. Just as your party thinks they're on their way to their final confrontation, the world splits apart, upheaving the game into a dystopian post-apocalyptic
and they had
adventure.
interest at stake here. He had to lay it out because Chelsea Clinton was saying, hey, why are we paying Hideo all this money? And he's like, hey, knucklehead, here's why you're paying us all this money, because this isn't about charity, this is about access to powerful people, so that we hope they do us favors.
Let's go.
So, according to the Foundation website, which lists donors in broad categories by cumulative amounts donated, Qatar's government has directly given a total of $1.5 million over the years. So that's an aggregate. Gee, I wonder if they were hoping for a good relationship with the Secretary of State and a person who could be the next president of the United States by giving that. Any reasonable person knows that that's, of course, exactly what they were after. By not reporting it, by the way, you make it look even more suspicious. Like the Clintons also knew that. That's why they didn't want to report it. By the way, to give you a sense of all the extravaganza that happened around Bill Clinton's birthday.
Sorry for the spoiler.
In another email released by
living under a rock to know
former
about
Clinton
this.
Foundation fundraiser said he raised more than $21 million.
It was the massive
in connection with Bill
Mooney
Clinton's
stabbing
65th
heard
birthday
around the world
in 2011. Look at that, just coincidentally, right around Bill Clinton's birthday, everybody got so generous, and they just happened to give Bill Clinton. The fact that his wife is the Secretary of State and might become president, no, nothing to do with it. You see, when the establishment says things like that, it makes our head hurt, and it makes everyone not believe you on anything. So just, the reality is, there is systemic corruption, and people with a lot of money give it to powerful people, and they would like something in return.
No.
So it's not
There's
illegal.
appointment
Whether it
for
should be illegal is a different question.
October 18th.
And in many different ways, we have
set up
legalized
a
bribery in
lifeline
this country.
transportation.
Now, in this case, they're giving you a foundation, and the foundation does do some good work.
It's a Friday, and
Everybody
I cannot
with a brain knows they want something in
so
return.
you have to ask
And that's probably why they
lifeline to come and pick you up at 1:30 and drop you off around.
All right,
Pick up
now
over there
we go
around.
to Chris Christie.
It's an hour, right?
Okay.
3:15 or 3:20.
Now, Chris Christie is the head of Trump's
Did you sleep
transition.
well last night?
That
Your eyes are big.
he
Go
is the
to
person
bed.
responsible for picking all of Trump's staffers. Now, he's not going to be solely responsible. Apparently, Senator Jeff Sessions, another deplorable guy, is helping in the process. Trump theoretically, ultimately, will have say over it, who's going to be in his cabinet. But the person in charge is monumentally important. Well, funny, because Chris Christie, when he picked staffers and put them in charge in New Jersey, it didn't turn out that well. A couple of them just got convicted. Oops. Now, this is over Bridgegate, and so he went on Charlie Rose's program, Chris Christie did, to answer questions about it, because it seems like your deputy chief of staff, the guy you put in charge of the Port Authority, were corrupt. Doesn't seem that way. It was proven to be that way. You picked them, and they said they coordinated with you. So what's your defense of this? Let's find out.
My first reaction was that the jury confirmed what I thought on January 9th, 2014, nearly 3 years ago. I had 24 hours to make decisions back then, and I thought there were three people responsible: David Wildstein, Bill Baroni, and Bridget Kelly.
Yeah, no, that's not what the jury said. They didn't say that you weren't responsible. Both the prosecution and the defense said, you know, the person ultimately responsible, Chris Christie. In fact, that's the only thing they agreed on. But since he's a professional liar, Chris Christie gets out there and he's like, see, proves that I wasn't responsible. No, it kind of does the opposite. All right, he's going to go on with this nonsense.
Why do you think she did it? I wish I knew, Charlie. I wish I knew. I never could figure it out. It was one of the most abjectly stupid things I've ever seen.
Okay, in a best case scenario, you put that person who does abjectly stupid things in charge, which you might now do for Trump on a national scale. Great. But in reality, his answer is totally full of crap. I wish I knew.
His story is mostly told through flashbacks and recorded fears. He probably has the most interesting character. Fame of being a sports star has gotten to his head, to the point where he comes off as condescending and arrogant.
I've been trying to figure it out this whole time. How can my brain can't figure it out? Coach Memo explains, yet Kelly testified that she told Christie that Portland's mayor, Mark Skolich, was concerned that the traffic jam was an act of, quote, government retribution on the fourth day of the lane closure.
Making him a deeper character than
So, if you didn't know before then, you certainly knew then.
You always cry.
And the Democratic mayor you were targeting also.
Number 8, Cecil Harville, Final Fantasy IV.
So what does it say about
It's easy to see why Cecil was such a tormented character, loyal to his king after being raised from an orphan to be a Dark Knight.
I thought about this last week.
His blind obedience after he was ordered to attack a
serve on my senior staff for 7 years. And I had one person who cannot one out of 25
orders he knows he ought
so I don't think it says anything about
It's only after witnessing the consequences of his actions that he seeks the need to redeem himself from the atrocities that he committed.
Actually bothers me more than anything else. And I know I know he hired these people. Part of the reason I know is because they said
Number 7, Vivian Orisha,
right?
Final Fantasy IX. It's nice
when
to
I
see the
see
classic
him
black mage
throwing them
design
under a bus,
in a 3D Final Fantasy game, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Got
when
these
it comes to
guys
describing
to do his political hatchet work. They get
manufactured
caught,
to
and then he
destroy,
turns around and goes,
still
"They're
ponders the
abject,
meaning of his
stupid."
existence.
I don't know
Also,
why they would
his
do
race
such a
only
stupid
has
thing.
the
It's all
lifespan
their
of a
fault.
year,
Not me.
making
Not
his
me.
story
It's
all
them.
more
When he throws his henchmen under a bus, it's particularly gross. So you know why they did it? Because you told them to do it, and you've been doing it for a long, long time, attacking all your political opponents in a ham-handed way. You know that's not a joke.
Sell his share.
Okay.
Final Fantasy VI.
This is
Celis is
super
a former
clear.
general of
And
the
this is the
Empire,
guy Trump was
imprisoned for merely questioning orders. Freed by Locke, she initially
First thing
resents
he
him,
said was
but
that
eventually
Bill
falls in love with him.
That's right.
She goes on to have
And
some
what
of the
did they
sixth installment's
tell
most
me
defining
was?
moments, from posing as an opera star,
Ian
to
Wildstein
foiling a
said
kidnapping
that
plan,
all
to
Mulroney
attempting to
said
take
to
her
me
own
was
life
that there
after
was
awakening
traffic
from
at
a
the George
coma to find a
Washington
world
Bridge,
completely
that the mayor was
devastated,
not getting his phone
assuming that most of her friends had
That's
perished.
right. I have to tell you, I have absolutely no recollection of any of them saying anything like that to me that day. So let's be clear. But even if they had,
so you're saying you have no recollection? You're not saying I can swear to you that they
Number
never
5,
said anything
Cloud's
like
Strife.
that. You're saying
Final
I don't
Fantasy
remember.
I don't remember any of it. But what I will
Okay,
tell you is
let's
this.
address the elephant in the room here.
If they would have told
Yes,
me
we do think Cloud is a good
that they
character,
were
but at
creating
the same
traffic
time,
at the George
Final Fantasy
Washington
VII
Bridge
always hogs
in
all the
order to
attention,
punish the mayor
and that's
for
why
not
Blondie doesn't appear
endorsing
higher.
you,
Also, the
I would have
mercenary
remembered
for hire eventually becomes part of the cause. The story arc
Anytime
really
a politician says, I have no
so he gets
recollection
points
of it,
for bad
they did it.
assery, but
That's
loses a few for
telltale sign
originality.
number one. Their lawyers told them,
Probably most
hey, say you have no recollection of it. They didn't say you didn't say it, or you didn't hear it, or you didn't do it. It just says, oh, well, I don't remember it. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. His lawyer soldier. It means he did it. In fact, we go back to Talking Points Mellow. Kelly, that's the deputy chief of staff, like I also testified that she spoke to Christie repeatedly about the gridlock on the bridge while it was underway. And Wildstein testified that he and Baroni bragged to the governor about the tremendous amount of traffic in Fort Lee 3 days into the closures.
It's pronounced
Wildstein, they joked with Christie about Stolich's frantic phone calls going unanswered.
The dragon.
In other words,
of
course he knew! Of course! Why do you think they did it? They were like, oh, I don't know.
Better hope that you
Maybe one day I'll be mad at that random mayor. No! Christie was mad at that mayor for not endorsing him. They were doing it to please Christie. Come on. It's so obvious. But look, I'd get more frustrated if it weren't for the fact
Final
the
Fantasy
entire state
VII.
of New Jersey gets it.
Again,
You know
like
what
Cloud,
cool rating is now in New
has
Jersey?
been a bit overblown over the years.
21%.
I mean, his supernova ability is
This is
just
a guy
looks
who
and
bragged
can't
about
even
how
kill
he
your
was a
team.
Republican, but popular in a blue state like New Jersey. Well, apparently not. So I wouldn't even do this
Ridiculous
story.
moves
Who cares
aside,
about this
he
loser
still
has
has
been
that
Chris
terrifying longsword that led
Except
to this
the
tragic
fact
moment.
that he is
Plus,
currently
his theme song
in an
is
enormously
definitely the most
powerful
iconic.
position.
That's too bad.
If Donald Trump wins the election, that guy gets to pick everyone in his staff. God help
Yet at the same
us
time,
all.
you know he's hiding something. Who are you
Okay,
anyway?
one last story in this segment. Now, having nothing to do
You
with
knew my old
politics,
man,
but
didn't you?
social.
Yeah.
Defeating most of his enemies one-handed, he sports a brash attitude of being fully committed to the
I was
cause.
going to make a wrong
even when
Brandon
the
Marshall
situation
joke, and we got the wrong Brandon Marshall.
There must be an exit somewhere. We search.
To be fair,
It all comes together toward the end.
there are two popular Brandon Marshalls in the NFL. We're talking about the other. Okay, so I'll do the story that we fill it in.
Don't make that face. Being dead has its
So,
advantages.
Colin Kaepernick, of course, started this protest as the national anthem is being played, and it has caught on. And so now a lot of folks are doing it. I'm going to tell you about one guy in particular in a second, Brandon Marshall. How effective, really, you say, it's all about nothing. This hasn't been effective. They're just, flying over it. No, I'll tell you. But first, let me give you a sense of how much it has spread. So far, the protest has spread to at least 48 NFL players, 9 NBA teams, 14 WNBA players, 1 gold medal swimmer, 1 pro women's soccer player, 52 high schools, 39 colleges, 1 middle school, and 2 youth football teams in 35 states across the United States, along with Brazil, Canada, and England, and a partridge in a pear tree. So, yes, it has spread.
Taking the top
So
spot
number
on
one,
our
in
list
of
is
itself,
the villain to whom the
that has
term
drawn a lot of
psychotic
attention
is
to
an
the issues
understatement.
of
As if his
police
gesture
abuse in
appearance wasn't already
brutality
terrifying
and
enough.
the wrong training the police are getting,
just to
that
enjoy
is
the sounds
wonderful.
of
That is
hearing
already in
thousands of
some ways mission accomplished,
also
at least in
successfully
terms of
devastates the entire
letting
world,
more Americans
just to
realize,
establish
hey, this
himself
is
as
what
a
African
godlike
Americans
ruler,
go through.
destroying
You might
entire
not go
towns
through it,
at
but
the sign
they
of
do.
any resistance.
Now,
As the
I will
ultimate
talk to you
psycho
about
from the
Brandon Marshall.
underdog favorite of the series,
He is one of the
Kefka
first
Palazzo
people
is our
to
pick
join the
number
protest.
one.
And when, at the time, Colin Kaepernick was alone, and Brandon Marshall took a knee and said, no, I'm going to join
our list.
He's from the Democrats, from a different team.
Which characters do
Now,
you want to name?
Brandon Marshall is a very successful player, but
Top 10 lists
not
published every day.
as well known as Colin Kaepernick or some of the other stars on offense. He's a defensive player. But he did have a couple of endorsement deals. Boom, he lost. Immediately, they said, oh, we don't want to be associated with this guy. And it had a financial impact on him. But he said, I'm going to keep on doing it because no matter what,
feeling 100% means you feel bold enough to
it's not about anything personal. We just got to get better training, as we've been saying on the air.
Bring out the bowl.
So he also went on to put more money where his mouth is. And they explain the big progress. Most of the critics of the protests,
it's time we take a look back
see them only as symbolic and distracting.
The world,
but Marshall has been determined from the outset to make sure he did much more than take a knee. He has donated $300 for each tackle he makes this season for organizations in the Denver community that address racial inequality and plans to continue those donations. So already that's success number 2. You know,
we're in the midst of
putting
together
the top 10 JRPGs of all time.
And sure, one game
a
per
good amount of
franchise
money going to a charity that works on this particular issue.
These games is best to represent this series. For this list,
he has also met with Denver police multiple times in recent months, particularly Chief Robert White. White was in charge of revamping the department's use of force policy. He told the Denver Post that the rewritten policy encourages officers to use as little force as necessary and provide specific situational guidelines for them to follow.
Despite being the game that finally brought the franchise into
what they were doing
it gave us a strong
so that they can have a conversation with the police across this country and say, hey, you know what, I think we can make this training and the system better, that we can tweak it.
Our heroes
this
find themselves being forced to fight
we hate you guys,
after being branded as
so that we can make sure that people who shouldn't be shot don't get shot. That's not that
help it?
much to ask.
Side are you on?
So
this title later went on to spawn 2 sequels, and they were not as good as this game.
2 seconds flat. Oops,
this one barely squeaked its way onto
another shooting in 2 seconds in a Walmart. Oops, he had grabbed the guy who was a grown-up and grabbed a toy gun and tore up the Walmart. He was walking around with it like any dapper. What if they were going to buy it?
Number 9.
But they didn't find out because they shot him in 2 seconds flat.
Despite the original title,
great credit to the Denver police, unlike
Western
Cleveland police and others, who said, hey, you know what, it's a good point, let's look at this and let's see how we can fix it together.
Game puts players in
wonderful, that's the whole point. And Robert White, the Denver Police Department chief, said, I'm of the opinion it's just not good enough for officers to take legal actions, but they also need to make sure those actions are absolutely necessary. That's where we're
job system with a choice of 20.
I can't thank the Brandon Marshalls of this world enough. Colin Kaepernick started the first one. And the whole point was to get action to fix the system. And that's what they've begun to do in Denver. So for all the people who said, oh, it's all about nothing, it's all about, you know, playing the victim card, all the other absurd things that you guys said, it was never true. It was actually about getting action to fix the system. And they did. People who don't want the system fixed always tell you, hey, don't do it.
Many of the elements it
don't go out the streets, don't get rowdy, don't even sit down, don't do the Thomas protest there is because they don't want the system
also brought a certain depth to the character
you gotta know
that the
something.
franchise
You've
hadn't
got
yet
power.
experimented with.
And if
Following
you
the
use
story
that
of the
power
Dark
in
Knight
activism,
Cecil
you can
feels that he has
actually have
lost his
effect.
humanity
And
from
you
following
can begin
unjust
to fix the
orders by his
system
king.
as Brandon Marshall and Colin Kaepernick did in this case. Finally, Brandon Marshall put out something on social media. It's a quote from President Obama that represents the way he thinks about things. The quote is, change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change agents.
This title marks a time when Final Fantasy developers
couldn't agree more with that.
experiment
There's so much more activism left to do on this issue than many of them.
Along with a realistic character
begin
design,
that
the
fight
game adopted
together.
an MMORPG style of combat, prompting a switch away from the traditional turn-based style the franchise had become so familiar with.
That's how we make America a more perfect.
The game follows Vaughn and Amelia in a story to reclaim Amelia's kingdom after it was conquered by the Arcadian Empire. complete with cinematic airship battles. But let's be honest, the real stars of this game were the Sky Pirates, Baltier and Fran.
I'm checking in, John. Right. Try it out with me. There's an interest. Deserves a little bit.
Final Fantasy.
When the crowd grabs that trigger, that is an opportunity. Yeah, you're gone.
Each installment in the numbered franchise became another pioneer of originality with its new innovations. After the success of Final Fantasy VII, with this entry, Square pushed forward a more focused love story and a greater emphasis on the futuristic world that this game is based in. In this title, players follow the story of a group of candidates of a military academy in their goal to stop the sorceress ultimate base. The unconventional draw and jumping system was adopted as a new style of gaining abilities and powering up characters, assisting the series in moving away from its traditional levels.
You're doing it. I don't know why. I was reading.
Number 5, Final Fantasy Tactics. The idea of a tactical-based role-playing game ran over with great success in this title. The game returned back to its 32-bit roots, but combined it with 3D isometric battlefields, rendering a whole new style the franchise hadn't seen yet, along with an unforgettable class system. Tactics takes place in the Kingdom of Evil, which is in the midst of an internal struggle following a 50-year-long war, and the death of the king, resulting in a power vacuum. The game received a re-challenge in 2007 with the release of Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions for PSP.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Do you think Tetra might be watching the same sunset?
Number 4, Final Fantasy IX. Number 9 was perhaps the franchise's last attempt to return to its roots, following the darker themes from the previous entries in the series. The 9th installment sought to go back to cartoony character designs that referenced the retro entries, and even featured some returning characters, such as Garland from the first Final Fantasy game. What begins with a theater troupe plotting to kidnap the Princess Garnet turns into an even bigger quest where each character has to struggle with their own identity. Overall, the game serves as a nice nostalgia blast for longtime fans. But one thing still feels weird: that bizarre Coca-Cola tie-in commercial. Number 3, Final Fantasy X. This breakthrough title brought Final Fantasy into the age of full 3D environments and voice acting, as it was the first in the series to be released on the PS2.
Hi, guys. Howdy.
In the world of Spira, a colossal monster known as Sin has ravaged the world for centuries, and it falls upon Tidus, who unexpectedly arrives in Spira to guide Yuna on her pilgrimage to defeat Sin. Featuring an unforgettable cast of characters and possibly the best love story in the series, the game was the last to implement a turn-based battle system, yet it still felt very engaging and tactical. Sometimes it's best to stick with the basics.
Don't say it isn't worth it. Because it is.
Number 2, Final Fantasy VII. This highly anticipated game is probably the one that introduced you to the franchise, and honestly, what else is there to be said about it that fans don't already know? From its influence in narrative, combat systems, and some really fun minigames throughout the adventure, Final Fantasy VII did it all for those who had a PS1. With too many memorable moments to mention, the series of prequels and sequels, and its own movie, it's no question as to why this is the best-selling game in the franchise. Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honorable mentions.
All hail Sephiroth, huh? And you, stay back.
Fantasy VI. Now, this vote was close, and we mean really close, between 6 and 7. In the end, it was ultimately the 6th installment that won out to be the unsurpassed title in the series. Originally released as Final Fantasy III in North America, the game was the last to be released on the SNES, and yet it was way ahead of its time. This was in part thanks to a diverse and colorful cast of characters, the elaborate summons, compelling storyline filled with amazing cinematic moments, that opera sequence, and of course, the greatest villain in the series, in the form of Kefka Palazzo. It all adds up to one of the most unprecedented role-playing experiences of all time. Subscribe to Watch Mojo.
Alright, I can't believe I'm going to run out of time here. I got a bunch of questions to ask you guys. Alright, Victoria Brown writes in, actually, the Clinton Foundation do fund campaigns to celebrate Bill Clinton's birthday. I got the email and donated my $20 as they do good work. Victoria, that's a perfectly good perspective to have, and I'm glad that you shared it with us. And as I have said throughout, they do some good work. But when you give $20, that's because you actually care about the global health care or poverty and all the different things that they're addressing. And I'm just not, and I know you don't want anything in return for your $20. Whereas when they get the government of Qatar to give $1 million on his birthday, that I'm less sure about in terms of what they're doing in return. All right, and finally, Bitchy Gay Guy writes in, remember 4 years ago when our biggest concern was that Mitt Romney drove cross-country with his dog tied to the roof of his car? I know, right? Now that's the good old days. My, how the country has evolved in 4 years. Okay, now, let me tell you about Standing Rock. So right now there is a standoff with the Dakota Access Pipeline that'd like to build a giant pipeline worth $3.8 billion, and the Standing Rock tribe in North Dakota. So the Standing Rock tribe says, hey, you guys are building on unceded territory of Sioux Nation, and we don't agree. We'd like to protect the water because that's sacred to us, and they're referring to the Missouri River, which the Dakota Access Pipeline would like to drill underneath. And the Dakota Access Pipeline says, I don't know what you're talking about. That's all private land that we bought, so we have the right to do that, and this is a safer way to go, etc. Now, there are some environmental interests, but the part of the story that I want to focus on today is about who's right and who's wrong about the land. And the more you dive into that, the more you realize that it is complicated and a fascinating history. So, I think that Jordan Charon at TYT Politics has done an amazing job. He's got a number of videos that lay this out. Go to youtube.com/TYT Politics to find out more. In fact, today, the New York Times quoted Jordan and his coverage in explaining to their audience what's actually happening at Standing Rock. But to the best of my ability, let me lay out the story in as simple a way as I can here. So, obviously, when the immigrants came into the country in the first place, what now we would call undocumented immigrants, settlers, etc., they immediately ran into Native American tribes. And throughout the history of America, there was a lot of conflict as that happened both first in the East, but then later in the West. Everybody knows this part, right? And at times, the conflict would rage, and there would be killings on both sides because the local tribes would think that their territory was being encroached upon, and oftentimes it most certainly was. And yet, of course, those in the East, the settlers and the American government eventually wanted to keep expanding west, so they would constantly have conflicts. And from time to time, they would settle those conflicts with treaties. Makes sense. And so there was the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851, and in that treaty, the Native American tribes, especially the Sioux Nation, said, okay, you can have the Oregon Trail, and here's a section that you can have, and the trail that you can use, and we won't bother you there, and that's not a problem. In return, we will get this block of land here. Now, that's already their land, but you won't encroach there. That is what the treaty says. So that's back in 1851. Okay, that sounds good. Now, look, they had all of the land before, but here they're signing a treaty saying, fine, you can have that portion and you can have uninterrupted access to where you want to go. Just don't bother us, at least on this portion of the land. Now, that's a treaty signed by the United States of America, and our word should be our bond. I would hope that if you're a good person and a good American, you would think that, hey, we signed a treaty, we mean it. Well, later, in the 1860s, they had to do another treaty because, honestly, the American government and homesteaders, etc., kept violating the earlier treaties. And history recognizes that it was not the Sioux that were violating the treaty. It was the American government and the settlers that were. So, in the 1860s, they do another addition to this treaty. And in that treaty, they explain, okay, now, look, here's the new map. Let's take a look at it. There is the Great Sioux Reservation. They can build there. They live there. No question that that is theirs in any way, shape, or form. This treaty is done in 1868. The yellow part is unceded into Indian territory, which is also theirs. It is Sioux Nation land. That is where they can hunt, and the Americans should not be going into that land. They agreed not to build there. The Sioux Nation agreed not to build there, but they own it, and they can hunt there, and the settlers are not to go into that land. That is what the treaty says. Well, now, to make a very long story a little bit shorter, between 1868 and 1944, the settlers kept encroaching on the land, violating the treaty over and over again. And from time to time, Congress would just simply now pass laws saying, nah, I don't think that's your land anymore. Now, those were not treaties. They didn't ask the Sioux, and those should not have the full force of and weight of the law because it was not agreed upon by both parties. Congress just simply went, we're just going to take it. Now, they realized that in 1944 they wanted to address it. I'll get back to that in a second. But what wound up happening is they said, okay, we're going to make your reservations much smaller. And so now let's take a look at that map. They gave them much smaller reservations out of the much larger territory, 7 of which went to Sioux Nation. And the rest of the territory, they simply gave away to homesteaders. So what are homesteaders? They are anyone who's willing to go out west. The American government would just simply give them free land. Land they didn't own, that according to the treaty was Sioux Nation land. They knew that. They broke the treaty anyway, and they just gave it to settlers who were largely white, not exclusively white. And look, some of the homesteaders, the reason the American government did that, part of the reason is they didn't want large plantations which had slavery, and this is now around the Civil War era and after the Civil War, obviously. So they wanted to spread people out and have individuals running their own farms and have a country based on that. Now that's the positive side. The negative side is they stole the land that they agreed in the treaty with Sioux Nations. So now, in the 1940s, they recognized that. The U.S. government does, and goes, all right, guys, our bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to compensate you for that land, because by treaty and by law, we shouldn't have taken it. So they offer financial settlements to a lot of different tribes. Some take it, some don't. Sioux Nation says, no. We don't want your money, we want our land. At the time, they were offered $108 million. Now, when they didn't take the money, it got put in a trust fund for them. You know how much it's worth now? $1.3 billion. Now, if you've seen the videos of the protesters or you know anything about that area, you know those are not rich folks. They could really use the $1.3 billion, as any of us could. But to this day, Sioux Nation says, no, we don't want your money. That's our land. That is unceded territory. We never ceded it to you. The treaty is still in effect. So now let me show you a video that we aired for the first time exclusively on the Young Turks. It's a drone video, and I'll walk you through it as we show it to you. And so this is the pipeline being built on what the Dakota Access Pipeline Company says is private land. Hey, I bought that private land, and there's the Missouri River, and that's the drilling pad a half a mile out from the Missouri River, and that's my land because I bought it. Well, the homesteaders at some point pass it on down, and at some point, this company did buy some of that land. It did eminent domain on other parts of the land the government did for them. But the Sioux Nation says, and they are right, no, according to the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, that is unceded territory belonging to Sioux Nation. So that is why we're at the impasse that we are today, among the reasons why. So when it gets to the water, it's a little trickier, because the water is actually Army Corps of Engineer land. That is a separate treaty or an agreement that was settled with the Standing Rock tribe of Sioux Nation. So the Army Corps does own the water. The company does not. The private company does not own the water. That is the Missouri River. It is federal property. Which then leads to the fact that we, as U.S. citizens, can decide whether they can drill under the river or not. If they can't drill under the river, then they can't do it. And the Army Corps of Engineers is part of the federal government. The federal government is us. We are the guys who get to decide, hey, are we going to honor that treaty with Sioux Nation? That was supposed to be our word. That was supposed to be our bond. Who are we as Americans? Are we the people who say one thing and do another? Are we the people who steal from others and never return their land to them? Or are we decent, honorable people who are going to actually have our bond mean something? Now, look, if you say, I saw that map, we can't possibly give back a giant chunk of South Dakota, North Dakota, among other states, back to the Sioux and call it Sioux Nation. I understand that. You can say, hey, the Dakota Access Pipeline, they spent all this money already. We can't just stop the construction and say, hey, sad day for you. But look, those are not your only options. One option is to say, hey, we're going to come to a fair agreement with Sioux Nation. And some of that agreement, yes, might involve money, but some of it might involve land. And if this is part of the land they really care about, maybe this is part of the land that goes back to Sioux Nation that has always had it and should have had it all along. And for the company, look, we do eminent domain all the time to help companies where the government comes in and says, nope, we're going to take this land so we can build something on it, and you don't have a choice, we're just going to give you fair market value. Can we not also do eminent domain to help people that were betrayed, a trust that was broken, and people that have been standing there for a long time to help them? The answer is, of course we can, and it's not just to help them. It's because it's the right thing to do, and it's the law. So we can compensate the company and have that be fair as well, and still not build a pipeline. Because when you look at that drilling pad sitting right there by the Missouri River, that is Sioux Nation. Look, from Sitting Bull to Standing Rock, these guys have not moved. And they have every right to insist on positions that are accurate and legal. They have every right to insist on land that is theirs. Now, I don't know that they get all of that land back, but I do know now a new fight has begun. And on this ground, they will stand as they always do. And they will say, not this time. So it's up to the rest of us to figure out where we stand. Do you stand with people who have been the victims of gross injustice for centuries? Or do you stand on the side of their oppressors? Do you stand on the side of your word, your bond, and the law? Or do you stand on the side of lawbreakers who don't care about the rule of law? That's our choice to make, because that water, the Missouri River, is ours. The Standing Rock tribe is trying to help us protect it. I think it's fair of them to ask us to now finally stand with them. Sioux Nation is very proud, and deservedly so. Those are the first Americans, and I think it's time for the rest of us, the other Americans, to join them in their fight. and stand strong with them. Okay, that's the Standing Rock. I can't believe I'm out of time. Okay, I'm going to have to save the Raqqa story, which is amazing, for another day. Probably not tomorrow. But that story's not going anywhere. It's about the Syrian Civil War. I've got to end this. I know it's a powerful story, and they're amazing. But I'm going to end this show on a totally goofy note, because we are one day from the election. So let's go to the last story. That's not the mannequins. That's the, if you vote for Donald Trump, yes, there you go. Okay. Well, in an election that's been quite dark, we end on a lighter note. Two porn stars, Angelina Castro and Maggie Green, have decided that they are going to put forward an extraordinary deal if you vote against Donald Trump. It might be an offer you can't refuse, or perhaps a job you can't refuse. Let him explain.
Hi guys, it's Maggie Green. If you're like me, you are sick and tired of this election. It's so depressing, and it really, really sucks.
My fellow DNA sister Maggie Green and I decided to put some fun back into this year's election.
And we're going to put a little more fun back into politics. So, I don't think it's any secret that Angelina and I both hate Donald Trump. I mean, the man doesn't like nasty women, and he wants to deport all those sexy, fiery Latinas. We can't have that.
Donald Trump seems to hate all nasty women and want to send all Latinos back to Mexico. But how then I'm Cuban?
So here's what we're going to do. If Donald Trump loses on election day, Angelina and I are going to give all of you BJs. Yeah, you heard that right.
It's very simple. All you have to do is vote against the orange clown and you will get a BJ. No brainer.
You just have to be following myself and Angelina on Twitter.
So if you vote against him, Maggie Green and I will promise you, all you nasty hombres out there, a BJ.
You have to vote for anybody but Donald Trump. Anyone at all but Donald Trump.
No brainer.
If Donald Trump loses, BJ's for everyone. It's really that easy. His loss will be your gain.
Team BJ Elections 2016. Come on, folks, let's do it for America.
Trust me, this is not a lie or an empty promise. There's enough of that in politics. Angelina and I will deliver on our promise if Trump stays away from the White House. So remember, a vote against Trump is a vote for nasty women and for BJs.
Come on, America, push the face.
Can't wait. I know. Okay, it's an offer that blows me away. Oh, swing, wait. Come on. But you know what? If you like it and you want to collect on it, go do it, champ. There you go, baby. There you go. Okay, up to you, man. And that's one other reason to vote for Donald Trump. Or no, sorry, against Donald Trump. Ay. Okay. I'm out of time, man. This is crazy. We got a whole nother post game coming up for you guys. You want to do the mannequin story? Wrap it up. I'll do more stories. Oh, they're arguing. All right, mannequin story. I'm hearing mannequin story. Okay, mannequin it is. That's what I heard. I heard you guys wanted another story. Okay. Alright, here we go, guys. Okay. Apparently we're going to end on an even lighter note. Okay. The internet's a wonderful place these days. Things pop out of nowhere and they take off. And do they make sense? No, not necessarily. But they don't have to make sense. So now we have this thing called hashtag Mannequin Challenge. What is it? Well, it's basically people that just stand still. Okay, fun for everybody. You know who started? High schoolers. Of course! 6 random high schoolers. As recently as October 26th, that's it. They decided they were going to look like mannequins. They were going to shoot a little video of it. Next thing you know, you got 4,000 retweets and 4,000 likes. I mean, I'm not saying some of my tweets get 4,000 retweets. I'm just saying, right? Okay, anyways, this is fun for everybody. So let's show you the original video that started the whole mannequin challenge craze. And they're still standing there. Yeah, they're looking like mannequins in a store. I don't know why they thought to do this. It is somewhat amusing. Bless their creative minds. And this is where it should have ended, but of course it didn't. Then people start, oh, I didn't even see that. Well, that's pretty good. How did he do that? To be fair, that was a nice ending. Okay, so that's where it should have ended, but it didn't. Then people started putting it to music, and then they liked the song by the Black Beatles. No, the song is the Black Beatles. I'm so hip. It's by Ray Shremmerd. I'm monumentally uncool. Anyways, next thing you know, everybody's doing it. They're doing it in high schools, then they start doing it in high school football games, then they start doing it in college football games, then they start doing it in NFL games. Do we have Utah? No, we don't have Utah, do we? No. They even did it in Utah. You got a bunch of white boys on a football team in Utah to do it, so you know the whole country's doing it now. Okay. Now, here's one thing I know about the Young Turks. We will not fall victim to this kind of, fad on the internet or any kind of silliness like this. We are not involved in it. We are way too mature for that.
Black Beatles in the city, be back immediately to confiscate the money. That girl is a real healthy.
God, when are you going to end it? Okay, guys. Post-game for you, all the members out there. More about the elections. Election extravaganza. Ben Mankiewicz is coming in. Jimmy Dore's coming in. TYTnetwork.com/join. Bye-bye.